In episode number 369 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover the state of current movies as outlined by Jennifer Aniston and Martin Scorcese.
We also have a bomb of a drop from Zack Snyder, the Martian Manhunter reveal from Justice League.
And at the very end of the show, we will be giving you our thoughts and our reviews on the Joker movie.
All of this and so much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I am your Emperor, Kelli.
And I am Fire Breather Daniel.
Eating too many spicy things.
A lot of jalapenos.
All the jalapenos. So for those of you joining us for the very first time, welcome to the show. The way we format is first we're going to start out with some news. We have our Patreon shout outs, our comic and a movie review for you this week. And we end with our Brocat block, which is what happened with Daniel and I this week.
Starting off the news with Harley Quinn, the DC Universe exclusive animated series now has a confirmed release date of November 29th.
So close, it's practically here.
We will definitely have our thoughts on this kickoff series. No word yet on whether this will be released each week or the full season all at once. I'm thinking they're going to run it like they have Swamp Thing and Titans and do it once a week.
Pretty much everything else, yes. Once a week, that's what I am assuming as well. But like we said, we will definitely have our thoughts on the show. Anything Harley, I have to be there right away.
Do you have a preference on a weekly release or the Netflix style of just putting it all out at once?
When do we have time to watch TV? I think weekly is fine. That way you get more people on, right? You pace it out a little bit further rather than, binge it and done.
No, I'm with you there. I know a lot of people with this culture of consume now, they kind of want that all at once, but it works better for DC Universe when they're trying to really stretch out the content so that they cover different parts of the year with at least a new show. So once this ends, you'll get the next half of, Young Justice or something else that's premiering. For example, Doom Patrol Season 2.
Oh, man, we still have to finish Doom Patrol Season 1.
We do. Yeah, we just barely finished Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing.
You can tell from that final episode that it was low budget. It was definitely cut. I like the show overall. It's not very much like the comic, but it's still very entertaining. But you can tell in that final episode, there's a shot where Swamp Thing is trying to lure the characters into the place he's held, where he's trapped.
The green is luring them, not the Swamp Thing, but yes,
it's Swamp Thing. And there's a shot where Abby goes, "Look, right there." And the camera cuts to a shot of just concrete with nothing on the concrete. And the camera just pans up, and then it goes back to the characters, and she goes, "We should follow it." And at that shot, the second one, you see little grass growing. So I'm guessing that there should have been concrete grass stuff in that one shot, but they said, fuck it. We're out of money. We can cut that shot. Nah, leave it.
I loved the name of the last episode. The title of it, did you notice what it was called?
No, what was it?
Loose Ends.
Of course. Why not?
I was like, whatever. I really wish the show had gotten a second season because they were on such a great roll, but they tied it all up.
I always like that customers come in all the time and they're like, why did they cancel it? It was so good. They should have just given it the second season. It's like, think about the money they lost on it. It's not going to it was never going to get one with that tax loss.
They pretty much just killed everybody off in the last episode anyway. Spoiler, sorry. It took us this long to see it. You should have already seen it.
On to some pretty upsetting news. The greatest Batman of all time, Kevin Conroy, has confirmed that he is not voicing the Dark Knight in the upcoming Arkham video game by WB Montreal.
He gave us this quote, "I'm not. I know. I don't know why." End quote.
I know. I don't know why. Burr, 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 burr.
Snow slowly falls.
This wouldn't be the first time WB Montreal does not use Kevin Conroy. They also did not use him in Arkham Origins, so they're probably just going with Troy Baker again, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it could have. I don't know. I'm going to assume that maybe they're going with a younger Batman and Conroy's voice just sounds a little too old. That's my speculation.
It's nonsense, though.
But it's my speculation. Just let me try to justify it somehow. Because then the world would be like a chaotic place if they just didn't use him just because.
I think it was in Rocksteady's video game where they tried to use a different Bruce for the portions of Bruce and then use Kevin Conroy for Batman. Was it the Rocksteady video game or was it one of the animated movies where they were trying to go back to a younger sounding Bruce Wayne and they thought maybe Kevin Conroy couldn't do it anymore and then it ended up working. It wasn't Killing Joke. Maybe it was one of the animated, but I can't recall. It could have been the Rocksteady game. He can always be young Bruce. Like, it works out. He doesn't sound old.
We always want him to be young Bruce is the better explanation.
Not that I'm going to get a chance to play WB Montreal's video game. I will watch the cutscenes. As you said, we would prefer Batman himself to be voicing Batman, but I still will watch the Let's Plays for the story.
This is what we have become
yeah.
as parents. You watch Let's Plays.
Let's move over to the state of movies, and we have some pretty big names kind of going after the Marvel Universe here.
In an interview with Variety, Jennifer Aniston spoke about the state of the movie industry.
She said, quote, "You're seeing what's available out there, and it's just diminishing and diminishing in terms of its big Marvel movies, or things that I'm just asked to do, or really that interested in living in a green screen," end quote.
Jennifer is one of my favorite actresses, and I feel like over the years people have liked her less and less.
For no reason.
For no reason. Well, I think part of it is she doesn't really make an effort to be real bubbly, right? She doesn't make an effort to be very outgoing, and she's very upfront about how upset it makes her when people ask her why she hasn't fallen into normal gender roles, right? So she's 50, she's absolutely gorgeous, takes fantastic care of herself, but she still gets asked, well, could you not just have kids? Why didn't you have kids? And so for a while, she was very public about the fact that I don't have to have children, right? Because I don't have a child doesn't mean I can't. It just means that's not what I want for my life. And, people gave her a really hard time, said Brad left her because she didn't want children. And,
I remember that.
And just all this really terrible stuff. So I think that's why people don't really like her. I always admired her for having the balls, really, to be upfront and say, no, this is who I am and I'm proud of who I am. So I, again, applaud her balls for saying, I'm either just not asked to do things, but I really don't want to live in front of a green screen. And it's unfortunate that while I don't think Jennifer has ever done beautiful cinema, like she's been in some funny movies that I have enjoyed, and
probably funnier movies than anything in the MCU.
Absolutely. There were no turd jokes in any of the movies that I've seen her in. And of course, she was very well known for Friends and made a boatload of money, right? Playing that role as well.
Iconic show.
Yeah.
For many, I always see that as a Seinfeld fan. That's the one show that's always like, greatest show of all time, Friends or Seinfeld. And I've never watched Friends, like really sat down and watched it. So I'm like, Seinfeld, fuck this Friends show. What the hell's Friends?
There were a lot of portions of Friends that I really enjoyed. I thought all the actors played their characters very well. But, and this is my unpopular opinion, right? I hate Ross. I think he's a terrible character. He's a terrible person. And Rachel was better off with Joey and should not have been with him. But I'm sorry, that's me.
Is he the guy with the flat voice? Where he kind of sounds whiny? Yeah. I remember him in the Wonder Years. He was Karen's boyfriend in the later ones. I was like,
he a terrible person in there too?
He was a better boyfriend than her previous one, so he was the best, and he was an improvement, and he was trying really hard to really fit into the Kevin Arnold family and really loving Karen, but I still didn't like him.
Yeah.
I'm like, this guy's lame.
We could go on all day. I'm sorry. Get back to Jennifer.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the bluntness that you were talking about. She's being honest about the state of movies and how the Marvel Cinematic Universe really is just diminishing a lot of these movies. Now, I know it is kind of hitting the panic button a little bit. I'm still going to stand by the stance of these are just the action movies of today. If you had talked about it back when Jurassic Park was coming out, it inspired a lot of movies to suddenly do like Godzilla, when they redid that, there was a lot of references to Godzilla in that, or in Jurassic Park, in that movie, even in King of the Monsters, when Monster Zero is looking in on Six from Stranger Things in that stadium, it's a shot of the eye, and then just like in Jurassic Park. So you can say that about a lot of whatever is popular at that time, whatever is inspiring movies. Now, I do agree with her that I don't like this movement of let's just green screen it all. It's cheaper. Let's not build a set. And it takes away, I think, a lot from movies and from cinema when they take a person and they recreate them like they did with Cushing and Star Wars and Rogue One. I think that's a big no-no. You should not do that. You should just act it out as you can. Even when they de-age a lot of these actors, I'm still iffy on those things. So that I know that's just the special effects of today, and I may just be a dinosaur in how they do these things in the future.
Bringing it back to Jurassic Park.
But I don't want to see a world in 50 years where actors are all computer generated without humans voicing or acting or doing some part of it.
You might as well just watch animated at that point.
Well, the thing with animated is you have the voice actors, but even in the future, if they can emulate human voice and change the inflections and have it exactly how they want it, that's the future I don't want. And the Marvel tech is heading in that direction, with the green screen being the start of it.
Right. Realistically, I don't think that we will ever get to that point in our lifetime. There are still so many people, such a large movement, and of course we'll talk about it at the end of the show too, that see film as an art. And I don't think that will ever go away. I think you will have studios like Disney, right, that will continue as things progress to only use green screen, and yes, maybe even emulate voices and create people and all those kind of things. But you have, exactly like here, you have actors like Jennifer Aniston that are saying, but I don't want to act in that. That's not what I want to do. I still want to have the sets. I still want to, be on location, right? And work with real people and real things, because I'm sure just a green screen is even more difficult for them. And, it takes away from the experience and really getting into that character, which is something that these actors love. I would hope they love. That's
something Ian McKellen had trouble with when he came back for the Hobbit movies. He had to talk to someone reading the script to him, and then he had the green screen, and he's like, this is really difficult. This is not what we did for Lord of the Rings. And it was a major change for him that he was not happy with.
Right. But beyond just the actors, too, you're going to have directors like Guillermo del Toro. Do you think he will never CGI a monster in his life?
Hell no.
No, he will be building that. And they'll be like, but Guillermo, this is the whole budget. And he's like, then it's the whole budget.
Then I quit again. It's like, God damn it. Can you get him back? We have another major name in the movie industry speaking out against the MCU. Through an interview with Empire Magazine, legendary director Martin Scorcese, which a lot of MCU ship did not know who he was. For example, he directed one of your favorite movies ever, Shutter Island.
Love that movie.
He was asked about the MCU, to which he responded with,
quote, I don't see them. I tried, but that's not cinema. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't the cinema of human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being. End quote.
It's a fucking carnival.
It's even better than your junk food analogy. It's a carnival.
It's a fucking theme park. It's full of clowns and jokes, and he is absolutely 1000% right. Martin, you're a fucking genius. He really is a fucking genius. If his many, many movies hadn't already proven it.
If they hadn't already proven it.
What do you think? I mean, he's talking about a lot of MCU sheep immediately got offended, but
of course,
what they don't understand is he's talking about artwork. He's talking about cinema. When he's talking about cinema, he's not just talking about movies. He's talking about the state of creating a piece that is going to stand over time for many, many, many years. Something that will get preserved in the Library of Congress, for example. And many of his movies are going to end up there if they haven't already ended up in that preservation of art.
That archive. Yeah.
And the MCU is not that. They're entertaining to a lot of people, and they are a CGI fest of action, and that's what it is, and they make a lot of money. And people have been saying, yeah, well, his movies haven't made $2 billion, and that's why he's jealous. It's like, really? You think Martin Scorsese
is jealous
with his many pieces of successes and movies that are forever influencing future movies? He's jealous that he hasn't been called on to make one of those.
Oh my God.
There was that tweet that said, are you kidding me? Like Disney wouldn't immediately sign him if he showed any interest at all in the MCU. Get the fuck out of here. As we said last week, he wouldn't want to anyway, because they would control all the different aspects and the action scenes and all that. They would want him to do the cookie cutter thing.
I think it's important to point out that nowhere in his quote did he say it's not entertaining.
Sure.
Right? And that's what people go to they go to these to be entertained, and that's fine.
Most people do, I guess. Yeah.
Most people go and that's fine. He never said he said it was a carnival, right? So he's saying they're entertaining, but no, they're not art. They don't you don't leave the movie and continue to think things through, continue to think about life, to think about how things can change. You go and you see it and you're like, oh man, Iron Man, and you cry, I guess, and then you move on.
Well, there were a couple people that had some things to say about it. And there's one that I hadn't planned on talking about anytime soon, because I am not seeing any of his movies due to his actions in the past. But we have someone who responded via Twitter, and that is Pedo Perv James Gunn. And he had something to say.
Why did he become like a Southern biker? James Gunn.
It's just the way I say it. It's the way I feel it.
That he's a
That's how I feel his Pedo
biker?
Perv name.
Okay. So he said, quote, Martin Scorsese is one of my 5 favorite living filmmakers. I was outraged when people picketed The Last Temptation of Christ without having seen the movie. I'm saddened that he's now judging my films in the same way, end quote.
Martin was specifically talking about you, James. Your fucking movies.
Now,
exactly. No, he doesn't give a shit about Guardians.
Here's what I want to really touch on is Martin is one of his 5 favorite filmmakers. Then why are you making this shit, James Gunn?
That's true.
If that is one of your 5, if you're saying, yes, that is what I want to emulate, why are you making this shit?
He's going in the opposite direction.
The opposite direction. You're a rebellious child, rebelling against your parents.
Or maybe his top 4 are like really shitty directors, and he just happens to fall in there.
He just slipped in there.
Yeah, so he's trying to emulate like the majority of his top 5, but it ends up being kind of shitty. One might...
I would be like, then I don't want to be your favorite.
Yeah. Can you take me out of your top 5?
Remove me.
Your top 5 is also a carnival, a theme park. Terrible.
And I don't want to be a part of it.
Pedo Perv James Gunn has nothing to fucking... He should shut his goddamn mouth. Because he has nothing to do with what Martin is saying. He's talking about the MCU. He's not specifically going over your shit. And as someone said on Twitter, he wasn't even talking about... He's probably never even seen or heard of your specific movies.
He tried, and it wasn't yours that he tried.
Yeah, he didn't try them when it was Guardians. He tried them probably pretty early on, and he's like, yeah, this stuff isn't...
for me.
No. And they haven't changed. In fact, they've gotten worse as time has gone on. So good on you, Martin, for saving time and use that time instead to almost produce or almost direct movies like Joker. He was attached at one point.
Yeah, was he? He should have stayed on there.
Maybe not, because Todd Phillips ended up taking over as director, and as we will talk about later on, he very much enjoyed what he did.
It's encouraging for me, though, to see these actors, see these big names in Hollywood of projects that we really enjoy come out and really talk against the MCU. I feel like we've spent so many years where we've been the minority, right? Saying, oh, we didn't really enjoy it, and everybody tell us why we're wrong. But now we have some legitimate people backing us up and saying, yeah, we really don't enjoy it either.
And I think that's where the disconnect comes, where people are talking about, why don't you like the MCU? And it's like, you got to understand, when I watch a movie, I want to digest it. I want to enjoy it. I want to think about it. I want that 5-star meal or whatever, however you want it. I don't want the junk food McDonald's,
right.
I want something really good. And that's how it goes with movies. So when I watched the MCU, or when I did, I had to give up because this was all junk food.
Mm-hmm. You want something that you, like you said, can take away and digest and reminisce on and go back and get something more from it. And these are not movies, you can watch it multiple times and you're not going to get anything more out of it. You're going to say, well, that ate up an hour or two.
Yeah, they're not nutritious at all.
Right.
But out of this news story, we did have someone who wasn't too happy. And what do we have, Papa Kelli, for the second week in a row?
We have our Nerd Rage Reaction!
You did it. You did it on your own, too.
I know, I'm real tired now. I was I'm out of breath.
Nerd Rage Reaction is where we pick out a quote from the news story, someone that is illogical or funny or angry for no reason. We will not give out the username. You're more than welcome to look them up yourself. But here is this week's Nerd Rage Reaction.
Maybe Mr. Scorcese is jealous or feels left out because he was never asked to direct one. You know how fragile those Hollywood egos are.
End quote.
Marvel.
End quote. He's jealous or feels left
Mr.
out.
Scorcese is jealous. Not Mr. Scorsese. Scorsese's.
Unbelievable. I wish I could go forward in time like 1,000 years so I can say, what's more remembered now? What's a bigger influence? Martin Scorsese or the MCU? Really think about that. Really think about that.
1,000 years, they're going to be going, ugh, why did you guys watch? What was wrong with society? Or maybe like we destroy the world. So
who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. Might not be around. Let's talk about something that was destroyed by Warner Brothers, unfortunately, and Joey Whedon. As revealed through Zack Snyder's Vero account, the Justice League storyboards showed that Martian Manhunter was in his cut of the film.
He went on to confirm that actor Harry Lennox's character, General Swanwick, was meant to be revealed as John in a cutscene between Lois Lane and Martha Kent.
They were able to shoot the scene except for Harry's portion, which Zack was scheduled to shoot in LA. So that's very important to show that they did have I think it was Martha that was leaving the apartment or had closed the door, and then it transforms into Martian Manhunter, which those effects are probably done, but then transformed into the General, which we had seen in Man of Steel. Mm-hmm. And people are now going back and watching Man of Steel.
With new eyes.
With new eyes as like, this is Jean. And they've even looked up these interviews from the actor, and he has said, and people were like, oh, that's interesting. Why would he say that? He's like, no, it's good to know that you're in a movie where you can go toe-to-toe with Superman. And people are like, oh, shit, he was talking about being the fucking Martian Manhunter.
Damn, I have chills.
And they've also pointed out in the scene where when he's in the interrogation room, and you remember when he gets up and very easily, like the shackles his handcuffs come off, and everyone flinches and steps back except for the General, because he was like, okay, do I need to stop this alien? And the whole idea is that he's been keeping an eye on Clark to make sure that he isn't a danger to the world.
I have real tears in my eyes right now.
It's crazy, right?
It's insane. I remember, so you told me about this happening, right? But then I had people on my Facebook posting the article like, what the fuck? And I was like, I know. And they're like, now we're even more about the Snyder Cut.
I am a little discouraged by the fact that that particular transformation scene was not finished. So they would still have to shoot that scene of him transforming into the General. So I don't know. There's a cut, and Jason Momoa has seen it. And even if it's not, as Zach did mention during the Snyder Con event that it was 99% finished, or maybe there is a cut that is finished, as he did say also that it's already done, and Jason Momoa has seen the cut of it. Whatever form it exists in, release the thing. Release the goddamn cut of it.
Set it free. With that particular scene, I really don't think anybody's going to complain if you switch between what's filmed and what was storyboarded.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, not at all.
Nobody's going to complain. We're all just going to come a little bit. All you little fanboys are going to be like, oh.
Absolutely.
And then you're going to keep going.
I love the caption in his Vero account. He said, here's probably something you didn't know about. Fucking Martian Man. Like, how many other things now? There's the 7, by the way. People have gone, that's the 7th member, and then unite the 7.
Oh. So, do you think the fact that he's continuing to reveal more just gives more legitimacy to the fact that it will be released in some capacity?
So, someone asked him right afterward in his Vero account in the comment. They said, hey, boss, this is great. We love it. What do we need to do to get this released? And he just commented with, you're doing it.
I have chills again. Oh my God. That wraps up our show. We can't get any better than this.
He's encouraging people to keep talking, keep doing the billboard ads, keep donating
mailing.
to the suicide prevention organization as well, and keep doing what you can to get these things done. And it's bringing attention to it. More people are learning about it. More people are getting educated about it. Not everyone follows this stuff as closely as we are. I tell people, I'm the one telling people at the shop, like, they just revealed Martian Manhunter. What are you talking about? What Justice League cut? Oh, did you not know about Darkseid? What do you mean Darkseid was in that? Let me tell you. Let me show you.
Is this why you come home late from work? So like all these people. What if, how cool would it be, right? Because I don't ever think we would get a full theatrical release of this, but Fathom Events could pick it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people are saying that HBO Max should just release it on there. It could be a Fathom Events event. It could just be a 4K Blu-ray. There's a number of ways that they can do it, and I don't know what the best way would be. What would be the most profitable forum?
All of them.
So I have no idea. I don't know what would be the best way, but whatever way they do release it, people are obviously going to flock to it.
Of course.
As far as we know now, Jean would not have been a part of that final fight against Steppenwolf. It's not something that we've seen yet, but do you think that transformation into the General was just to set up Justice League 2 so that he does join the team at that point? Or do you think there would have been an extra scene near the end that would have revealed him as the Martian Manhunter?
No, because I think if we were going to, I think it would have been revealed right now, right? If he was going to be there at the end with them. I think that's definitely a setup for Justice League 2. Because also, yes, this thing happened like with this guy, right? But he's not going to want to lose his place. Like he probably understands he still has more good he can do as the General, watching over the world, watching over these people, rather than say, oh, this is a minor threat, right? Like, peace, let me go help him. Mm-hmm. He probably knew they had it under control.
Still pretty upsetting that we could have gotten a live action Martian Manhunter on the big screen. Hopefully we'll continue to get a little bit more information from Zack and, of course, eventually get that Snyder cut.
But with that bright beacon of hope, we do wrap up our news for the week.
Let's head into our thank yous, the people that make the show possible every week. It is our Patreon shout-outs.
This week, we have 4 shout-outs. The first one goes out to Brian, whose Twitter handle is @BrianShaup1.
Brian was the first Mogo himself to call us an award-winning podcast.
Which we are.
That's right. Thanks to you for nominating, for voting for us, for getting the word out there. None of this would be possible without you. And Brian, a huge thanks. And again, I didn't forget it. He's the first one to say award-winning podcast, which is huge, huge. Thank you so much, Brian.
We cannot thank you enough for helping us get to becoming an award-winning podcast. I'm still like amazed that we actually hold this award, incredibly humbled. We can't ever say thank you enough for making this a reality for us.
Next shout out goes out to Kat on Instagram @CatShaw.
Kat got a holographic cutout decal of her Instagram handle.
Much like her Instagram, it is colorful, it is holographic, it's got, if you ever follow her page, she has a lot of photography on there. Mm-hmm. She's got some makeup images on the recommendations as well. So hopefully more people find her Instagram through that holographic cutout.
Next on the list, we have Matt, whose Twitter handle is @MrForklift. You can also find him at typingaboutmovies.com.
Matt just put up an article talking about the best and the worst of the DC animated movies. So definitely check out his article and list. He does a bit of like a summary of each one of those movies.
That's awesome.
So for example, Batman, Mystery of the Batwoman is on the worst part of it for being forgettable. But then he's got movies like Under the Red Hood in one of his favorites. So once again, that's at typingaboutmovies.com.
And our final shout out this week goes out to Jared, whose Twitter handle is @SpoonSandwich.
You can also find them on youtube.com/Jared Monroe.
He tweeted, quote, "When a 3-year-old gives you a flower, you put it behind your ear. #dadlife," end quote.
That's right. Dad life. You feel pretty when a 3-year-old gives you a flower. And he had the bravery and the awesomeness to share this on Twitter as well. He looked good. He looked again very pretty with a flower in his ear.
That's just what you got to do as a parent, right? As a dad, like your kid gives you something and you run with it. Your shame Doesn't matter.
The only time I felt the way Jared felt in that picture is after I'm done cutting down the bushes with the trimmer outside. and somehow like all the flowers end up in my hair and I'm like, God damn it. Like I'm pretty, but I don't mean to be. So thank you so much, Jared, Matt, Kat, and Brian, for your Patreon support. If you too would like your shout out every single month, head on over to patreon.com/thereasonsimBroke. And for just $1 a month,
$1
equals out to a quarter an episode, 25 cents an episode. You too can get your shout out.
But of course, guys, our podcast will always be free. The best thing you can do is leave us a review, tell other people about us, reach out to us on Twitter. We do this show for you.
And this week, we want to point out our Discord lounge, and you can find the link in today's episode. You can also find the link at thereasonsimbroke.com, but it is essentially an ongoing chat room of just the Brokehead core, so make sure to join us on there.
But with all those fantastic shout-outs out of the way, we can move into our comic book highlight this week, which is Joker Harley Criminal Sanity #1. This is #1 of 9. It is a DC Black Label issue.
This is written by Kami Garcia with art and colors by Miko Swayan and Mike Mayhew.
Like we said, this is a DC Black Label, so it's pretty graphic. There's, of course, some swearing in it, and it's in that much bigger format with no ads, so you're going to get a whole lot of story for what you're paying for.
And it is the longest DC Black Label book, 9 issues, so we're going to get a larger format on this 9 different times, and it is once again a case of the artwork lending itself to the larger comic book. You have 2 different artists, but Miko and Mike have both worked on comic books on their own without needing to switch back and forth. And the way that this book does it is when it's in the present, it's black and white. And when it's in the past, it's actually in color. So that's how they make it clear to you near the beginning when they're going back and forth between Harley's past and Harley's present as not just someone who is breaking down the criminal mind, but someone who's also trying to solve a case.
I also took away from that, too. When she's in the past, she seems like she's much happier, right? This is before she went down this road where she had to solve the murders, before the murder of her roommate, presumably her best friend. And so everything's in color and it's vibrant when we're back there and she's happy. And then you switch to she's just trying to solve cases on top of teaching classes, on top of trying to educate all these people about criminals who are psychopaths and criminally insane and all those things. And in those moments, it's just black and white and sullen. In addition, I think the black and white also kind of pulls away from the gore. So can you imagine if this was entirely in color and you're seeing people ripped in half and their throats cut open? Like that would make it significantly more intense than the black and white, which just mutes it a lot.
Yeah, and that's something that obviously makes it a Black Label book, is that it can show corpses. And at one point they point out Ed Gein, who was who inspired Leatherface, for example, and Psycho. It's one of the worst, I don't know if I want to call them serial killers, but psychopaths as far as what he did with these bodies. And I looked them up, and these were not made up Gotham killers. Obviously, they were real, like Ted Bundy. And those were all referenced in there. And that's where you get some of this Black Label stuff, and probably where you will get Joker doing similar things to these killers in this book. And because the other killers were real, I'm less afraid of the Joker, but I know that he is committing, or someone as inspired by Joker is committing these crimes. So I'm very fascinated to see if we're going to get a churn of Harley Quinn.
Right.
Or if it's just going to remain as her, the investigator, trying to stop the Joker. Maybe admiring his killings, but still saying, you shouldn't do it, but it's fascinating the way your mind operates.
Works. Yeah, that was incredibly interesting to me. It's a version of Harley that we haven't seen before. She's always been, trying to fix the Joker, and I don't feel that this is her trying to fix him. This is her trying to understand his killings, right? He killed her friend. Now she wants to know why. She's trying to solve this murder because nobody else ever will, because the detective is an asshole.
Yeah, they made that very clear.
And so you really get to see, it's a very smart book, right? It's giving you a lot of facts on how these minds work, on mental health, on, serial killers aren't necessarily psychopaths, and then going into all of that and the research behind it, and really pointing out that she was the top of her class in all these different things, that she knows her shit.
Aside from what we've seen in Harleen, this might yet be the smartest Harley Quinn we've gotten, because of all the things that they've gone through. This one and Harleen are probably the most elevated psychology-wise of the character that we've seen. So it's once again kind of building on that, but also doing something different. It's not Harleen all over again, because I would say that other Black Label book is a more traditional Harley, even though they've done those changes. But this is like a detective story, as if she were a detective. And yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
I also like that it, at least in this first issue, there's very little Batman. You see him for a second, and that's it. So I almost wonder if she's going to go into his psychology as well, because the only glimpse you see is him cutting somebody off and somebody dies because of it.
Yeah.
Which is typically not a light that you see Batman in. Like, obviously, we know it's happened in some stories, but just very different. So I really like that it's mostly just focused on her and the GCPD and her trying to help out and figure out these crimes, and really figuring them out faster than that asshole guy was.
Yeah. Solving the crimes for him, because he's not doing it.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of themes in there, too, about, I don't really want to say women empowerment, because I don't think that's the right word to use, but she's pretty much the only woman that you see in this entire story thus far, and it's her schooling men, her telling them why they're wrong, her solving things for them, her educating them. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's a very big theme throughout this book as well.
The wrap up that I will give for Joker Harley is it's not your traditional comic book. It's more of an indie title, but detective story, which fits with the Black Label line, because it's not trying to fit it into continuity or trying to make it seem like every other Gotham comic book. It is trying to do its own thing. So if you kind of like that detective story, if you like something a little bit more street level, this is the story for you. I might even compare it a little bit to that Joker original graphic novel by Lee Bermejo, in which it's told from the perspective of a goth, or of one of Joker's thugs. That one's very grounded, even though you get a lot of Joker, Harley, and Batman. But this is a little bit closer to that than, say, even Harleen.
But of course, just to reiterate, this is not for the faint of heart.
Right.
There it is, and I won't say like super over the top graphic, right? But you do see people cut in half, and you're going to see murders throughout, I'm sure.
I'm almost getting a Silence of the Lambs vibe from this, so that's probably the closest to anything. If you enjoyed that movie, hopefully we'll get a Buffalo Bill, and we've yet to get the reveal of Joker, who may be our Buffalo Bill. We'll find out.
Is he going to tuck and dance for us?
I fucking hope so. So there's your comic book highlight of the week. Let's head into our movie review, which we promised last week, and some of you on Twitter were like, what, a week and a half, 2 weeks until the review? It's here now. We've got it.
We gave you time to see it.
That's right. Exactly right. You have no excuse. You've had about a week and a half, almost 2, depending if you're not a Patreon backer, to watch the Joker movie.
Everybody's telling me that my stand-up's ready for the big clubs.
We, of course, were there opening day, our butts at the first showing that we could possibly see.
Within a half hour of tickets going up, I bought that shit.
Of course you did. You were reloading like every 5 minutes. Like, why can't I buy it yet? For 2 months, you reloaded every 5 minutes. And you actually had the opportunity to see it a second time, too, before. So you can really give some solid thoughts.
Yeah, I did see it 2 times. The second time was this past Monday for 2 reasons. This podcast and Dead Channel Duo's podcast. So I am going to be guesting on Dead Channel Duo. Make sure to search Dead Channel Duo on your favorite podcatcher, because there will be another Joker review on there, but with Al and Andy for their show. So you get double dose, essentially, of the Joker review from at least one of us. But here is The Emperor's and I's spoiler review for Joker. So this is your warning. If you have not seen Joker yet, tune in next time, or tune in after you've seen the movie. Come back to this episode. As a reminder, it is episode number 369. But let's jump into a couple of the facts. But first, of course, the credits, the people that made the Joker.
This is directed by Todd Phillips, who previously did The Hangover.
It's also written by Todd and Scott Silver, who previously did The Fighter, starring Christian Bale.
Yeah. The stars of the movie are, of course, Joaquin Phoenix, who was in Walk the Line. We have Robert De Niro from Cape Fear, Zazie Beetz from Deadpool 2, and Frances Conroy from 6 Feet Under.
A little bit of trivia about Joker at the time of recording this podcast. Opening weekend estimates have it topping last year's Venom,
wow,
which held October's opening record.
So far, its worldwide earning is $272 million. This marks Warner Brothers' biggest opening this year.
Forbes has reported that Joker earned $13.9 million at the domestic box office, which is a 43% growth over Monday. So this is the $13.9 million on Tuesday. That it's at the time we recorded. It's like, all right, that's huge already.
Mm-hmm.
This made both Monday and Tuesday the new October record, totaling its 5-day domestic total to $119.9 million.
This is greater than Deadpool and Captain America Civil War's first 5 days in the box office.
An R-rated Joker film topped The Avengers 3, basically, Captain America Civil War, and Deadpool, which was also rated R, and that was a huge success for him, but this even topped Deadpool, a rated R Joker film, but more embarrassing, the MCU's Captain America. That's insane. The movie that they had to pay Sony to get some Spidey in there just to get extra box office. Joker himself topped it with a restriction on tickets, with the restriction of it being R, with the restriction of this controversy of people being afraid to go to the movies. It's still, imagine that embarrassment. That's amazing. Good on Warner
Joe
Brothers.
Face,
good on
MCU.
DC Comics. Hell yeah.
Hi, Joe Face. So the way that we're going to break down this review, we're going to talk about the story, we're going to talk about the acting and directing, and of course the special effects.
Story's going to be something that I really focus on here because they did a lot of interesting things with the Gotham lore, with Joker, with Arthur Fleck, with the origin of this Joker character in this one-off movie. Not a sequel.
No.
let's
Not
be real.
A series.
Not a prequel. It's a one-off. It's a one-shot to the comic book readers. And the story itself is very similar to the script that I had read about a month back or month and a half. But it is all about Arthur Fleck being the avatar of the lower class in Gotham, being the inspiration for them to rise up and fight, being that last push for the city in a world in which he's not trying to be that. Instead, he is learning more about himself. He's stopping the medication. He's becoming his real self. It's not about him being corrupted completely by Gotham. It's about them pushing him to discover who he really is.
Beyond pushing him, too, it's them not giving him the help that he needed to maybe move past this or work through all these issues that he has. They just kind of leave him there to fester and to wallow in this. And yes, ultimately make him become the Joker.
It's as he says in the end of the movie, it's all about what they find as subjective. So things that he finds funny or not, things that he finds offensive or not offensive, then they do. So it's him pointing out the ridiculousness of this current society that does not care about people like him, a system that has failed him, plus the people around him that are contributing to that are piling on, that are symbolically kicking him when he's down. It happens twice in the movie. And the second time that happens, he fights back, he fires, and he kills people. And that's what ends up happening at the end of the movie. He ends up kicking back at Gotham and kicking back at these people that have wronged him in the past. And other people reflect on this. It resonates with them. They build on it. They fight back as well. So that's what this is all about. But of course, you have this very personal take on it because you're following Arthur. You're following his career or non-career into being a comedian. You're seeing the people that are taking advantage of who he is by putting him on the Murray Show and making fun of him and making a spectacle of this and throwing him under the bus, even his fellow coworkers, people that he thought were his family even did some awful things to him in the past and were as corrupt or insane as he is now. But the biggest thing is he's always searching for that little bit of comfort, and it's not showing up in any portion of his life to the point where he has to make up a reality.
Within this movie, there is so much to digest and so much commentary on how things really are. I don't have enough I have so much to say about it. There's just so much, and it leaves you, I think, from the very beginning, because you start and Arthur you can tell he lives in his own little world, right? And he's doing the best that he can, and he just gives you this sense of discomfort from the very beginning, as commenting that people often feel uncomfortable around people who exhibit quote unquote unnormal behavior, right? Because he's not normal. He has, even when he's having that thought of, oh, if I was on the Murray show, right? And he's just like sweet and awkward, but he would make people uncomfortable. And when he's, interacting with the love interest and again saying really uncomfortable things, and she's just like laughing them off, which of course you find out later, like it's kind of all in his head, right? But you're just following him throughout all this, and it starts kind of normal, but you have that discomfort from the very beginning, and it just continues to get worse and worse and piles on. And I genuinely left the theater and I was like quiet for an hour because it just took time to process all of that and really understand everything they're trying to highlight in this movie.
It's cinema that's good for you. You're thinking about it. Everyone's thinking about it. And that's what's great. I love it. You're right.
Even now, diving back into it, like I just wanted to cry by the end of this. And one of the things that I loved about the story is, of course, it took you from moments inside his head and outside of his head, right? But it was still all very linear and it was very easy to follow, which I think was the smart move because there was so much more to digest. So if you were having to figure out the timeline in addition to all the rest that was being thrown on you, I think it would have been too much and we would have missed a whole lot, right?
One of the major things, the themes in the movie is that he's always looking for that father figure in his life. And I think it's bigger than most people realize. And in the Joker film is he's looking for that surrogate father. And very early on, they make that clear when he's looking at the Murray show and he's imagining himself, someone that he looks up, someone that's probably raised him. You know, he watches the show all the time with his mom, and he sees this as a prominent male figure. The mom is listening and looking at him and watching him and admiring him, and they're both laughing and they're watching him together. And then it shifts to Thomas Wayne, and she's suddenly going, he's a good man. He will be good for Gotham. So now that's slowly becoming the new surrogate father to Arthur Fleck, someone that he's still looking for. And that really got me when he's having that fantasy of these cameras, this audience, all of this. I would give all that up to have a son like you. And it's just this beautiful fantasy, something that would never happen, but it's something so beautiful that he wants to be real, something that he needs. He craves that in his life and he doesn't have it, and it cuts back to him and he has that expression of just desperation, sadness, depression. It's not a reality. He knows it's not real, but he escaped in that for a moment, and then he shifts that when he finds out that Thomas might be his real dad. So it's once again this bit of hope to direction and meaning in his life. He says that in it, he writes it down in his journal, his joke book, of my death might make more sense than my life. And of course, he writes sense in CENTS, and something that he feels is funny. And he tells the joke, a similar joke during his tryout, I guess, at Pogo's. And it's things that he thinks are funny and he laughs, but no one else does. So that, I think, goes back to his condition of maybe a form of autism, or they never make it super clear, but it's something that detaches himself from the rest of everyone. Things that he finds funny, others do not. And but just finishing off on that father portion, the betrayal happens twice. It happens when Thomas punches him in the face and calls his mother crazy and says, none of this is real, you're not my son. And then it happens on the Murray show when he brings him on just to ridicule him.
When you mention that, I totally pick up on that now. I think I picked it up in small doses. The part that I think I clung to more is, you know, throughout all this finding out about Thomas and his past and all that stuff, it comes out that he has been adopted. And so the the message in there about the adoption system and how it was seemingly extremely easy for this woman who had a mental illness to get a hold of a child, and what has that now done to him, right? That this large portion of his young life has been essentially blocked from his memory because he has to find out about it later because it was so traumatic. So in what way was it so easy for her to get this child? And that just gutted me, right? Because how often is this a reality? How often do you hear about foster homes that are just filled with children that they don't take care of, they don't love, they don't support, they just get them because the government gives them money to do it. And things that happen to Arthur are not uncommon. And
in that part of the story, I think the heaviest portion of is when they're interviewing her, and she's obviously very sick, but she says Happy never cried. He's always been a happy boy. And that all goes back to that line. His name is Happy, and that goes back to several pieces of dialogue in the film where he does say, I haven't been happy for a single minute of my fucking life. And not only, it's obviously a double meaning there, where he's now becoming who he's always been, whether or not it's because of this damage that he suffered as a kid, that's up to you to make up in your mind and to decide as a viewer. But it's his realization of Arthur Fleck is not me. I'm not who I thought I was. I'm not my mother's kid. If you think about it with the adoption, or some may argue that Thomas Wayne was really his father. That's once again up to interpretation, but I don't see it that way. And instead it's him discovering himself, and it is that embracing the damaged mind that he unfortunately has.
I feel like we could really go on about the story forever, right? Because again, there's so much. There's, talking about poverty and how people claim they want to help poverty, but Thomas Wayne even calls them clowns, right? He says, oh, they're all clowns, but I'm here to help them.
They don't realize I'm here to help them.
Right. And that's...
Where's this PR guy?
But I think that's, again, a commentary on what really goes on, right? We see a homeless person, and do you genuinely think as a whole, do we genuinely think how can we help them? We're just like, oh yeah, they put themselves there, right? That's us being shitty.
Yeah.
That's society being shitty. That's what we've trained ourselves, to think. And you have the rich thinking in general that they're so much better than poverty and not trying to help them.
There's a disconnect between the two, absolutely. And that's where a lot of that festering and violence between the two groups really comes forth. There's a huge separation there in Gotham in this movie. Then, it seems like there's no middle class here. Like even the social worker says, they don't give a shit about you. They don't give a shit about people like me. That's really all it is. Like even the social worker is on the side of Arthur, even though she's doing a shitty job.
Right.
She's also run down by the reality that is Gotham, unfortunately. At the very end of the review, I do want to cover some of the script differences to see what your thoughts are. But if we were still talking about the story, we have to ask ourselves where we fall on the line of some of these non-realities or some of these questions that we have. And I think the first one I'm going to go with is probably the largest one. Do you think that Thomas Wayne was in fact Arthur's biological dad?
No, I don't. Not at all.
What was the situation between him and Penny?
I think he did sleep with her, because in my largest belief in that is she had that picture of herself where it said like, love to see you smile, and it signed TW, Thomas Wayne. Until that moment, I don't think that I really believed that he had anything to do with her. I do think that she was crazy. Probably something happened and she took it too far. She developed, an obsession with him, and they had to let her go and admit her into Arkham and X, Y, and Z. But because of the adoption papers, I don't think it was really his son. I think she adopted him and then made herself believe that this was his son because she was, of course, out of her mind.
After my second viewing, I'm a little back and forth about it more. Like I'm still leaning towards it's not his biological son. And I understand that there is a lot of neat things that you can pull from the movie if it is
Right.
his biological son, because then you can say, okay, Batman and Joker are connected in a much deeper way in this particular universe, because he ends up murdering a father figure that he saw. As Screen Crush pointed out, he surrogate son murders the surrogate dad, and then a surrogate Joker murders his real dad, I guess you could say, by the end with Thomas Wayne's death on the streets of Gotham. So there's a lot of that in there. But I do think that it goes more on, and some people have argued that it's possible that little note that he wrote on the back of Penny's photo was the catalyst of her thinking it's more than what it is. So some people have pointed that. Some people have said that she could have, and I think it's a little far, but they're like, well, she could have just made that up herself and written that to be a part of. I feel like they would have inserted a scene in there to make that clear enough. So I don't think that's the intention of the filmmaker. So I think it is intentional, though, that he sees that photo and he immediately crumples it because he sees that Thomas Wayne maybe did have some kind of relationship with his mother, but he still rejects what he did to him in the bathroom of, no, I'm not, your mother's crazy, you were adopted, you're not my son, and that kind of goes further. So yeah, I think I lean more as well to him not being his biological son, her taking it further. But again, I go back and forth with Penny in the earlier scene after the second watch, because she's more or less cohesive now in the present, right? Where she calls him Happy, she's trying to worry about him, and she points out that he's not funny. So she's pretty in touch with reality in many aspects. And when she tells him, look, I didn't contact him for all these years because they made me sign these papers. And I'm like, what papers? Could they have forged the adoption papers to make her take on his biological son? And she says in the movie, because of the things that could have done to him, to Gotham, to his career. And then she says, plus, I mean, look at you. And that's when Arthur says, what do you mean? What about me, Mom? And then the scene cuts. So it's like he never wanted to be connected probably to what ended up being Arthur Fleck, to if his son got beat up like that and got damaged, he's like, oh, no, I really can't be connected to this. So there's a lot in there that could connect to Thomas really wanting to distance himself from all of this. Or it's the opposite route of she's insane and she just built all of this up in her mind. It's up to you to decide which one has more credibility. So again, I'm back and forth, but I am right now leaning on your end of it's not his biological kid.
The scene that I think I go back and forth between what happened is when it comes out that all these moments with the love interest are just made up in his head, and he shows up at her apartment and she's like, you're in the wrong place, you need to get out. And he holds up, his fingers as if it's a gun, and then it cuts.
Well, she freaks out when she sees that.
Right. And so you don't know if he killed her or not. It's not made clear by the movie. But what are your thoughts? What's your take on that?
I don't think he killed her and the daughter. I know a lot of people think that he did, but I feel like there would have been more going on in the apartment. There would have been detectives definitely investigating him. And instead it cuts to the next day. It actually cuts to his apartment. He's just laughing out loud and a neighbor says, shut up. So if the police and the ambulances were there after a murder, I don't know, or maybe they could say that they didn't discover the body, but if he shot them, if he really had a gun instead of his fingers, as some people were saying, I think someone would have heard it. Definitely the next day, someone would have discovered something, maybe. But it's a corruption of the fact that, again, I read the script. So in the movie itself, though, you do see it in the script. He actually leaves the wand with the flower that he had with Bruce Wayne and an envelope. And I believe there was cash in the envelope, where there was a letter apologizing to her. And he leaves that on the doorstep as he's leaving with his full makeup to go to the Murray show. In the trailer to Joker, there's a far shot of him walking down the hallway. It's in the first trailer, and he's walking with that wand with the flowers out and an envelope. So the intention originally, and they cut that out because you see the scene gets cropped a little bit more so you don't see the items he's holding. But the intention, like the script, was to put those at her doorway as an apology or as a goodbye to her. So I don't think he murdered him.
I still think I lean towards that he did, which would break my heart even more.
Well, he went after people that wronged him.
Right.
She never did.
No, but he was also now going full-fledged Joker. I guess, I don't know, was that scene before or after his friends come to visit?
It was after. Oh, the Zazie scene? That was before. That was after he finds out. He gets punched, he goes back, and he says, I had a bad day. And then the next day, he murders his friends.
Oh, okay.
Well, his one friend.
His one friend. Okay, so maybe I'll lean that he didn't do anything. But it was tough for me because he leaves and he's laughing in his apartment and you see like police lights.
That I don't remember seeing the second time or the first time even.
I remember them.
They might have heard sirens, but it's also Gotham.
That's
like
true.
That's a
That's
sound.
true.
It's like
So,
just background noise. Even New York, I'm
know.
sure.
I don't know. You said that it wasn't the intention, so I guess I'll go with that. But they did leave it pretty open for interpretation.
The other story beat that we had was he was intending to kill himself on the show in front of everyone. And that was his knock knock joke, right? Knock knock, and then he fucking kills himself. What do you think was the change from that original plan to instead murdering the host, the one who wronged him?
I think it was actually getting in the show and maybe realizing his true self, who he really was. We have snippets throughout this whole thing, right? Like a part that resonated with me was in Arkham where he says, yeah, I did a bad thing and I thought I'd feel bad for it, but I really don't. Going through that, you see, you have the scenes where he's practicing coming onto the show, going through the curtains. But that moment, dancing is a big thing for him, I think, to kind of collect himself. So he dances right before he goes on set. And you see that moment when he walks through the curtains and he's just confident. He just seems so incredibly, and I don't want to use the word normal, but yeah.
He's himself.
He's himself, exactly. And so I think that was the moment symbolically stepping through the curtains, right? Where he becomes fully himself and he has no fear in admitting that he did these things, again, because he doesn't feel bad for it. And then Murray starts arguing with him. And I think that's when he kind of realizes that, oh no, this guy's the problem. Like, I'm not the problem.
And I don't know if this is intentional, but I viewed the dancing because there's the first, you see him dancing after he murders the Wall Street guys in the bathroom. And that was not a part of the script, but he ended up improvising that portion. And then it becomes a part of the movie as you continue on. But I viewed that as, some people said like that's him collecting himself or calming down, but I viewed that as his true self coming out. That's where he's losing it. He's kind of becoming comfortable with who he is. And you see that a number of times where he's by himself and he starts dancing. And that's usually after a big event or after he's really had another big loss in his life. He dances with his mother, not in the same way that he's dancing in all of these scenes.
Right.
The scene right before the curtain in the Murray show, he's dancing and kind of prepping himself up, and the one person looks over at him, and that's really the first time he's dancing in front of someone, but not for them to watch. Then he comes through the curtains, he's spinning, he's doing that whole thing. So it's like, this is the first time people are seeing him do all these things. He also had the staircase scene, actually. Out in public, he's now dancing. So I think that is like, all right, this is the Joker. He is himself. This is Arthur. Happy is gone, if anything. Happy is no longer there. The name she gave him, which he didn't like Penny Fleck, that is all discarded at this point. And it's what Gotham has created. It's what his mom has created. It's what Thomas has created with Murray. So that's how I was viewing a lot of these things. And I think it was a very smart decision for them to carry that on to the rest of the movie.
I would definitely agree with that. It was almost chilling, all these movies, all these moments that you saw him dancing and you saw him making this transformation. And it was just so smooth to watch because it was such a subtle transformation throughout the end. And you saw glimpses of, who he would eventually become throughout, right? And then you get to the end and you're just like, oh shit, but I still cared for him. He was just so sympathetic and you just, my heart hurt for all the people who had let him down at every single stage when he was reaching out for help and trying to find help. And they were just, exactly like with the social worker, they just weren't listening.
One story beat that people have been pointing out is the murder of the Waynes, Thomas and Martha, in the alleyway, which of course was caused by the whole riot of him shooting Murray on live television. This is probably a detractor of the film. You see Thomas and Martha running out into this craziness instead of staying in the theater.
Right.
Like one of the things that I told you after, I'm like, it would have been better if I think they dragged them out. Like the clowns all dragged them out or something and then killed them if they really wanted to show their death. And some people were saying, okay, well, if they wanted to have them sneak out and try to get to their car, they should have instead cut where a clown character or someone follows them into the alley and then the scene cuts. That the death of the Waynes, actually seeing it, was unnecessary. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I could go either way. There's a way that it could have been more artfully done, I guess. I don't know, getting to see Bruce's face, right? And understand that, I think this moment still ties it back and reminds us that this is a Batman film. Or, I mean, it's not a Batman film. So that was the wrong way to say it. But it's in this universe. I gotcha. Right? Whereas, yeah, we have all these names. We're calling him the Joker, X, Y, and Z. But that's really the only moment in the film. I genuinely think it's the only moment in the film where you could say, okay, this is in the world of Batman, because that's how it happened. You could have all these names, but at the end of the day, this could just be a guy being driven to madness because of his shitty situation.
I did like that scene where they made the pearls. Once again, they gave us a different form of the pearls falling. In the Tim Burton universe, the Joker shoots Martha and then the pearls fall and all that. In the Nolan one, he's trying to take that jewelry from her. In Zack Snyder's, the gun gets wrapped up in the jewelry and the firing is what breaks them all up. In this one, he's frustrated at the richness, and out of frustration, he grabs the pearls and tosses them into the ground, which is amazing. Amazing. And I love that. I still want to point out, though, that Snyder's is the only one in which both Martha and Thomas try to fight back to protect Bruce.
Yeah,
which is really
Snyder.
Neat. Yeah, like Martha grabs the gun and it's like, oh my God, the Waynes.
I'll say in this one though, I never genuinely felt like this family had love in it though.
This particular one.
Yeah, this particular one. I felt like Alfred, who we get to see, which was really cool. Even though we never call him Alfred, he was Alfred.
It was Alfred.
But I feel like he genuinely cares for Bruce, which obviously carries into Bruce's entire life where he's, just got Alfred. But even when Thomas punched Arthur and said, stay away from my kid, I really didn't feel like he cared about his kid. I don't feel like he cared about his wife. I feel like he only cared about his run for mayor and he had to present this perfect family. And so, yeah, let him die.
Yeah, and it could be just the fact that we're seeing this from someone else's perspective and not Bruce's.
Right.
But you're right. I think it is intentional that he is worried about his running for mayor, and the way Bruce is, like, he's not a regular kid.
He doesn't
even at
smile.
That point. Yeah. And that's when Arthur tries to make him smile, and it's like, these two characters are kind of damaged in a way as well, and they kind of connect because of that, and he's just trying to make him smile. And in every other kid, he does it well. Like, you see him at the cancer hospital, and they're all laughing at him, and he's doing a good job.
Well, I think even the fact that Bruce walked up to him, right? Bruce doesn't even know who he is. He's an 8-9-year-old kid, whatever, walking up to him, letting him touch him. He's not screaming out for his parents. He's not anything.
Wasn't completely worried about it. Like, you seem kind of like, whoa, this guy's choking Alfred, but he wasn't like, oh my God, help,
Right. He never once reached out to his parents as you would expect a kid to do.
Right. Yeah, a lot of great stuff there. We as you said, we could do a full 2-3 episodes out of this, but let's head into the acting and directing cinematography of the film, which is another huge part of it. There's nothing new here that you're not going to hear on another podcast or another show. They all killed it. Everyone was amazing in this. Joaquin, people are going to talk about. I have people asking me for Joaquin posters from the Joker, and people are saying that that's their Joker move over Heath Ledger, all this other stuff. And no, don't compare the Jokers. That's what I'm going to say. It's every single one stands on it. Every single one is great and strong and stands on their own, and they each did their own thing. And Joaquin was no exception.
All the buzz around his performance, the lengths that he went to give us this performance, right? Losing all that weight, which, I'm sure was extremely difficult, and putting himself in this headspace to give us this, and just, I mean, like I said, because of his performance, I left this movie and I just wanted to cry for an hour afterwards, because he fully immersed us in his journey and took us on this ride. And yes, I think it will be a very, very long time before people stop talking about how fantastic he was.
I don't think there was a single weak performance in this movie. Everything was very strong, very solid. Robert De Niro was memorable as fuck.
Yeah.
Damn, he was only in a few scenes, but I'm like, he did a great job as that host that is making fun of Arthur. And
Arthur's mom was just
yes,
like, yeah, I truly believed that she was one, crazy and deteriorating and all those kind of things. She was a shitty mom too. Don't tell your kid he's not funny. Anyway.
Yeah. A lot of people were like, God damn, like in the theater. Zazie Beetz was very charming. You really believe that she was there for Arthur as much as, I doubted that first scene where she's like, you were following me in the bank. Hey, so I was hoping you'd shut up the place. And the reason I know now people are like, oh, okay, it makes sense because it wasn't real and it was all in his mind. And yeah, you had that joke of, well, I have a gun. And that's actually in the script where he constantly says shit that he doesn't mean to be a joke and she keeps thinking it's funny. In the script, that relationship is real. But there's no like kissing or having sex in the script. Instead, she's like, no, I was being nice to you. What'd you think this was? And that's that churn in the script itself. But that's why I still believed it when she was talking to him. And she did an amazing job too. Cinematography, as we said, in the trailer, when you're watching it, everything is frameable. You can take every shot. And someone asked me today, is it worth watching in theaters? And I don't mean it as in, is it a good enough movie to see? I mean it as in like the Avengers. You see the spectacle, you see the special effects, and you should see in theaters. How about this? And I'm like, yes, but for different opposite reasons of the Avengers. It's well shot. It's well framed. It's well lit. Everything in this is just very well done and very carefully done as well.
Well, I think you have a much more immersive experience in the theater too, as opposed to sitting at home. So you have that amazing surround sound, and I rarely talk about music in movies,
but
like
the score.
It was beautiful. It just fit so well and guided your emotions throughout this entire thing. And I was still waiting for the song from the trailer, though, which we didn't get. But I was waiting for it.
What was it? The cello for the most part, right? In a lot of these?
Yeah. It just, like, you felt it. And we saw it in, I don't even know what it's called, the big screen.
Yeah, the, like, XD, something
yeah, when we went to see it the first time. So it was, the bigger screen and yes, just for the fully immersive experience of it. Yes, see it in theaters.
All of even the close-ups of, there's a lot of close-up shots of these characters, and it's uncomfortable. It's tense. There's a lot of reflection on the journey with Arthur. Obviously, when you see it in the trailer, he struggles to go up those stairs. He's struggling in life. He's struggling to keep it together. He's struggling to be happy. And then at the end of it, when he lets it all go and he's murdering people and he finds out who he is, he's dancing down the stairs. He is no longer burdened by this city.
He's dancing into madness.
Right. And there's a lot of that in the movie where, as he's looking up at the TV, for example, when he's at the hospital, and that's where where Murray is. He climbs up the steps during the City Lights. No, it wasn't City Lights. It was Modern Times, a Charlie Chaplin film in which it's about him working in an industry and he gets actually worked. He falls into the gears, which is like, oh, you can see that as madness and the Joker. There's symbolism there as well. But the way I took it is he's going up the stairs and then he is on the same level as this rich society. And they're all looking down at the screen. And what's down at the screen? The tramp, which is Chaplin, the poor. They're laughing at him. So once again, that symbolizes, but he's laughing at Chaplin for a different reason, because you can see it. He's tearing up as he's laughing. He relates to Chaplin. So he's there on that same level as the tramp, whereas all the elites and everyone else watching, they're laughing at him.
Well, he even writes in his journal, and I got chills when I read that, is the worst part about mental illness is everyone expects you to behave as if you don't have it. So it's him constantly trying to crawl out of this and be beaten down by his journey to crawl out of this because he hasn't been given the tools. He doesn't have food, right? If you want to go back to his physical well-being of not being able to climb the stairs. He doesn't have food. He doesn't have, someone to listen to him, to help him find that balance and that happiness. And then eventually when he realizes I don't need to keep climbing this, then yes, he starts dancing down into who he really is. Yeah,
he stops taking the medication too, which I'm like, well, and she says the medication has to be doing something. And I don't know what it did to him. It probably kept him down some, and when he stopped taking it, yeah. So that was interesting. When you were touching on him trying to fit in to the world, did you notice Todd Phillips and Joaquin talked about the 3 laughs as you were watching it? Did those immediately click in?
I don't know that I would say immediately, but I was aware of them.
Yeah. There was the normal one where he is, I say normal, but it's during his condition, right? Where he is trying to fight it back and he's in pain. It comes up during the worst times. And I think the most painful one to me is not in front of the Wall Street guys. It's not in front of Thomas Wayne. It's when he is at Pogo's. And it's like, all right, he's on stage and he's ready. And then it fucking hits him. And then the score hits and it's sad. And I'm like, fuck, man. That's when I felt the worst for him. I'm just like, Jesus, he's been working like as whatever the material, however you feel on what the jokes were. It's like, he's there though. And then it fucking hits him. Of course it had to hit him. Why wouldn't it then? That's the first laugh. The other one is when it's the fake laugh. It's the one where you see him, going down the hallway and he's got that loud laughter, very animated. What he thinks is normal. He's at the club writing down these jokes and he's just laughing. That's what that's his fake laugh right there.
Right. He's trying to fit in with society.
And it's obviously very abnormal and it doesn't fit, but he thinks it does, which again reflects on the character. And then the final one is the most normal laugh, which is at the end of the movie when he's in the cop car laughing at all the people doing all of this. And they're all like, stop laughing, you psycho. This is all because of you. And he says, I know, isn't it beautiful? That's his true laugh right there. And it's just the normal laugh. It's just Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Right. Yeah, it just now I have chills because you're reminding me of this. But there's so much, and again, Joaquin did a great job. We got off topic, right? We were talking about acting.
We're still acting, yeah.
Right. So yeah, fantastic job. Again, we could go on forever about all the little things. There were so many little things, and I tell people, we were talking about it the other day. They said, well, why don't you like the Marvel movies, going back to that, but you like something like this? And I said, because I like movies where you have to watch it multiple times and you get more things out of it. And this is 100% one of those movies. I feel like I could watch it 10 times and pick up something every single time I go on this journey with him, and all these little things that they put so much thought and care into. It was outstanding.
Absolutely, it was. And I know our final category is special effects, and I think we can mark that into the wardrobe, the makeup, the score even. You want to talk about the score, which was incredible. I don't know her name, but she did the score based on the script, not on the film, which is very different than how it normally goes a lot of the time. And they ended up actually playing her score as they were filming the movie a lot of the times and then working towards that and getting into that mental state.
Right.
So I think the score was a huge, huge part of the movie. Yeah. And that on its own deserves to win something come, Academy Award season.
Yeah. Agreed. Again, I rarely ever notice music in a movie or talk about music in a movie, but that was something that stood out with me throughout the entire thing, was how much it added to what I felt when I heard, these low tones and all these different things throughout.
The costuming department, the sets, the streets that they filmed in. You want to go and visit these the stairs, of course. I think they're the same ones as The Exorcist. I could be wrong, but
they are. So,
they are.
So it popped up. It popped up on my Facebook. They've actually changed it. So in Google Maps, you used to be able to search Exorcist stairs.
Yeah.
But they've changed the name to Joker stairs, and it's titled as a religious location.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Those fucking stairs. That's twice that those stairs have come into my life, and twice that I won't forget those goddamn stairs.
Twice that they've brought me something.
It's crazy. Those are great stairs. I love those fucking stairs. I mean, this is you can't do that shit on green screen.
No.
Can't do that fucking shit on green screen. Just like that Rush Hour GIF I put up. Can you do this with the MCU? Can you do this with the MCU? Hell no, you can't. Hell no. That's the beauty of having physical sets, having something that you have in front of you. And that's a product of what is a lower budget film. And it ended up being greater than if you were to double, triple the fucking budget. That's amazing. That's an accomplishment. That's what makes movies like this great.
I think that pretty much sums up our very lengthy review, right? There's, again, so much that we could say about this movie, so much that it touches on. One of the things that I'm also loving about this is I've yet to see anybody in my social circle say something negative about this.
Interesting.
Everybody is saying, go, they're posting articles. One that I saw the day after we saw the film was, people are leaving the theater and saying they need a trigger warning before they go see this, and these different quotes, and somebody had posted it, and I said, well, one, if people don't understand what they're going into before they see it, they've been hiding under a rock. They have made it no secret throughout this entire process what this movie was going to be about. And two, the point of the movie is to make you uncomfortable. If you go in there and you're not uncomfortable, then you're not understanding and you're not really watching the movie, or you probably need to go see a therapist, right? And all the responses to it, to my comment from these people that I didn't expect, right? They really like the MCU. But their responses were, yes, I really enjoyed it. There was so much to take away from this. I'm glad I went and saw it on the big screen. Somebody else, I can't wait to see it. I'm very excited. Your thoughts are 100% correct. All those kind of things. Everything has been very positive, and I feel like people are really walking away with the message of what's behind this.
I didn't expect, and I still don't expect, the MCU sheep to like this movie in spite of, reactions that you may have had. However, if they did, hopefully they retain this as an example of what a good fucking movie is. That's all I have to say. That's what I hope they take away from this, is just elevate your, bring your quality standards a little bit higher. Just a tiny bit. Just a little bit.
And here's
all I ask.
Here's what I will say to that. I think a lot of them will like this movie. I'm not going to say all of them, but I think a lot of them will. However, they're not going to argue with the fact that this isn't a movie that you want to watch frequently for fun, because it does take you on an emotional roller coaster. Do you and I want to see this movie again multiple times to digest more? Yes. But the average moviegoer, why they may like it and like what they can take away from this, if they're looking for something fun, they're still going to go towards the MCU. Their
version of fun.
Right.
Sure. I do want to talk about the script real quick before we go over the final things. And I already talked about the envelope and the thing. One thing with Zazie Beetz' character is that I think her name was Sophie in the film. I don't think they said it too often, but in the script, all of this is real. They had a relationship, they had a friendship, but he viewed it as a little bit more. And in the apartment scene, when he goes back in, and and they rewrote it when they were filming it, of her just being shocked and saying, "Who are you?" "Oh, you're that guy that lives down the street, down the hall." And that's when you as a viewer realize none of this was real. And in the script, she's actually having sex with another man, and he walks in on that, and he chases him down the hallway, and he runs back to his apartment. The next day, he goes to the school where he originally followed her, and she says, "What were you doing in there? What'd you think this was?" And that's that disconnection. And he actually looks down at her daughter and says, "Did you know that your mother's a giant whore? She's a terrible person." And she slaps him, and that's when he runs off. So there's a major change that they did from obviously the movie. And the part that they reveal to the audience, he has a cat in the script the whole time, throughout the whole movie, that he's interacting with, he's feeding, taking care of. And after he ends up murdering his coworker in the scene, he opens up the window for the cat to leave, right? Like, you be free, go on. And as it's leaving the apartment, it passes a mirror, and there's no reflection on the mirror. So that's telling the viewer or the reader of the script that not everything he is seeing is actually real. He's lost it, right? Or that's also symbolism to his old life, or to his old self, to his fake self. And I think there was another major script change. Oh, there's a funeral scene, and that was filmed because you see it in the trailer. The first time you see that bright red suit is in the funeral scene, and it's one of the only ones he owns because he's poor. It's glossy from all the wear that it's had over the years, and it's the only thing that he has. And the detectives find him at the funeral, but what ends up happening is he's the only one there as his mother is getting buried, and he has a laughing fit while he's doing that. So his eyes are watering, and he's red and all that, and he finally leaves. And that's when the detectives see him, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And they see him wiping the tears from his eyes, but it's from the laughing fit. And I think they point out the brightness of his suit, and he's like, "This is all I had." And they said, "Were you the only one here at the funeral?" And he says, "Yeah, we didn't know many people." And it's once again Gotham ignoring them and all of that. And they're like, "Well, we're not going to ask you anything." And he says, "I just buried my mother." And then he leaves. And that they filmed because, again, you see that in the trailer. And I did want to see that. And I do hope that we get some kind of extended cut, or at least the deleted scenes, in the final Blu-ray or 4K version of the film. Because I do think that particular scene, or even the scene of him dropping the envelope with the wand, adds an extra layer of symbolism as well to everything there. And even the bright suit, wearing that to the funeral, it can be viewed as a celebration of his old self dying as well.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see how that fits into the film. I'm sure we'll get a director's cut. I'm sure we'll get an extended, or at least, like you said, the scenes, right, where you can view them. But it would be interesting to me to see how maybe that alters it a little bit and changes our viewing. So hopefully, when it eventually comes out to us where we can view it at home, we'll have that.
So there you have it, everyone. It is my second favorite movie of the year. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood ended up topping it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's such a good movie, and so is The Joker. It's an incredible film. It's one that we're obviously going to own, we're going to buy, we're going to talk about for a long time. And this is what we look for in movies, everyone. If you want an example of, well, when you compare this to the MCU, of course it's better. This is why I can't watch this, because I do that with every movie.
Right. Yes, you do.
So there you go. Watch this movie, enjoy it, digest it. It's not the deepest movie in the world. Obviously, it's not my favorite movie. It's a lot of people's favorite, and good on them. And it's a very, very strong film, and it's gonna be hard to do something like this in the DC Black line. I hope they continue it. Warner Brothers, follow this path. And credit to Warner Brothers for not bitching out on not releasing this movie. They could have easily gone, okay, limited release because of all this controversy. Fuck the media, fuck CNN, fuck every outlet, blogger, reviewer that tried to cut down on all of this and make people scared. And good on Warner Brothers for sticking to their guns.
And let me point out, nothing's happened. I mean, knock on wood, right? It's the first week, but nothing's happened.
They were fucking praying that something would happen, so now they're trying to... the song was used here, and fuck off, man. You can't find the goddamn... Joker kept on going, and Warner Brothers never pulled the plug. So we gotta credit Warner Brothers on this one, guys, everyone. We gotta credit them, and because of them, we got to enjoy it on this wide release, and what ended up happening, viewers paid them back. It's done incredibly well in the box office. It's been very profitable already. If you view this as the pattern, holy shit, I want to know where it ends up. Good on them. Good on everyone. Good on Todd Phillips. Good on Joaquin. Whatever happens at the awards shows, remember, you already won the Golden Lion. Whatever happens moving forward, it's been an incredible piece of cinema already. People are behind it. People are loving it.
So because that was so full, our Brocat block is going to be a little bit lighter this week, because that was most of our week was the Joker movie and talking about the Joker movie. And we're glad that we had the opportunity to be able to share our thoughts with all of you.
Well, let's head into something very personal we're going to touch on here. It is the Brocat block, which is where Palpa, Kelli, and I have been this week.
Just briefly, my week was pretty mild. I was able to take some days off because we got to celebrate a little birthday.
Good.
Which, was great. And so it was nice to spend some time with both of my boys and saw the movie and all of that. And yeah, that was my week.
Yeah, it was good. It was a very special several days for Leo because, of course, very luckily, he has 2 sets of grandparents that he got to celebrate his birthday with, and he was very happy. He loved blowing out the candle at every household. You sing him happy birthday, he starts blowing in front of him. It's adorable, and I love it, and it's a beautiful thing. It's one of those things of parenthood that you can't imagine before you become a parent, and you don't forget after you're a parent and you've seen it. So that was probably one of the best thing that happened to us this week. I do want to end it on the fact that this past week, we did land on, and I do wish it was a month, but Mental Health Day was on October 10th. And of course, that reflects very heavily on not just the Joker movie, but with a lot of people, with suicide rates being what they are. And so what we did this month is our Patreon support from all of you is being rerouted for Mental Health Day. And you can see all the details. You can see the receipt on patreon.com/thereasonsimbroke. It is a public post, but this is something that you have done. Thank you so much for donating towards that cause. As always, it's not just a matter of, talk to someone, get some help, but it's also supporting the organizations that are actively trying to do something to get help for everyone out there. For everyone struggles at some point in their life. Most of us have already done that, whether it's through tragedy or major change, or simply the fact that some of us are a little more unbalanced than others, and bringing awareness to all of that whether it's through something like art and cinema and a film, maybe a character that, or a society or some characters that you relate to or not. And all of that reflects on some help that you may need or some help that you can give by simply being there to listen so that someone can go on another day. So thank you so much for donating to our Patreon, and in turn this month for donating towards mental health awareness.
So with that, guys, we will wrap up our podcast for the week. Thank you so much for tuning in this and every single week, for reaching out to us on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke, at Kelli. Again, we do this show for you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I am Fire Breather Daniel.
And I am Emperor Kelli.
And Broke at Core,
all will be well.